Recording in progress. Um, so we were thinking about actually creating a few Slack channels, or at least that's where we're gonna invite them to, or that's where we're gonna start from. And depending on their size and whether they are freelancers or just studios or actually, proper agencies with a lot of people, the founders would be there, and we would schedule bi-weekly calls and just chat about whatever the topic is, and whatever the outcome of that short chat is going to be, we're going to build and create a resource for by just collecting information from the group.
Okay. Makes sense.
After the call. Yeah. But it's interesting. I haven't done too many calls yet to make any plans, but then we have a pricing, we have like what's included in them. But as this new trend with SaaS companies not communicating their prices on their websites, we're doing the same thing with roadmaps. So nothing is actually visible. And on the other side, I've been writing the manifesto, the principles, its way of working, and preparing to this whole handbook of how agencies should manage their projects internally, communicate with clients, manage expectations and such. And then the other one is how to go from freelancer to building your own agency. Very, very lightweight. It's free. It's just gonna be online. See who find it useful. But then the detailed stuff is going to be behind the paywall, which is
Got it.
pay up, get the good stuff.
Yeah. Like are you thinking of it as a school, as like a guild kind of thing? Like, like, because they're already practicing this stuff. So yeah, how do you think about this mentally? Just like as an offering.
I'm thinking of it as finally, now that we are going to seriously niching into a group, and roadmap is a very simple product to use. So it's just a way for us to market the product, not creating a school, not creating another kind of a career path for an advisory thing, but more of the best way to create resources that are actually useful for people without talking too much about this is how you use roadmap. Is by just teaching them about the things that we've learned running an agency. It's pretty much unrelated to the product.
The product is just an enacted way to understand these things. Like, well, here's a tool that helped you visualize that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it shakes out. Like, because there's the possibility of a community here if you can connect these people. Like.
Well, aren't they in a Slack? Is that what I overheard?
Yeah, this is.
Yeah. So
because they have similar interests, and if like the backbone of it is like you sort of bringing them together with your conception of how this stuff works, and then they can fill it out with their own information. There's agency in that. Like, they're able to bring some of their own work to the thing. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know how, I've never been part of one of these things. It would have been nice to have during my agency days for sure.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm noticing that I'm like, what the fuck were we doing for the past 4 years? Was that in the beginning of roadmap, we jumped on calls with the people that actually applied to use the product. Yeah. We picked the good ones, and then we jump on a call and then we showed them the product, and then they became insanely invested in the product. Just they liked the design. It was, polished and everything. And they just started writing about it on Twitter and everything. And that's how we got the product launches to go well. Yep. Now it's starting to feel the same kind of vibe.
Yeah, I think that there's a movement now, and I mean Daniel Zarek was talking about this a little bit. A few people, like I'm not really paying a lot of attention to software and stuff, but I'll like old habit. I sort of pay attention to what's working, what's not from people who have an understanding of these things. And like along with the pricing stuff that you're talking about, the movement towards like automated sales, like do your own, like check out on your own or whatever. Most everybody is moving away from that. People want higher touch. Because there's so much shit now. So
Because the software is like loaded with features and like how do you best use it kind of thing.
I don't know particularly why, but I think because I'm not using a lot of this stuff, but my sense is that partially with COVID, right, and people being disconnected and
Sure.
stuff, there's a movement in that direction. And then probably partially because there's a just overwhelm of information or whatever. So, but yeah, this tendency towards like closer relationship in the sales process, knowing what you're getting, being able to like as a customer,
Forming a relationship.
yeah, basically. So that, I mean, and you're basically saying early days, like you're like, here's how it works, this is how we're thinking, and then they're able to get that download, and then if it works, then they pass it on because it feels good to teach the thing, you know, once you understand it. So yeah, it's interesting. You have a goiter in your neck. What's happening to your neck?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Sometimes when I swallow weird, it just kind of difficult. Yeah, so I need to pop it in the right place.
Weird.
Super. And it's very uncomfortable because then
that happened.
I haven't kept track. I don't know, like
But like daily?
no, like a couple of times per week if I'm doing weird things with my mouth, like yawning with my mouth closed, then it just goes out of its place. Yeah.
All right. Well, keep an eye on it.
Is that medical advice?
Sure. Dr. Dave. That's what we're gonna.
Dr. Dave, keep an eye on it.
Keep an eye on that one.
Let's talk again in a week.
So that's cool. All right. Well, you got, and you're enjoying the calls and stuff. So it's nice getting into weeds with people. Like,
the agencies are coming in one by one.
We haven't. Everything is happening now in the background, so we haven't even put the pitch online yet. Inan took priority, so that thing should be shipped soon. We went through the list of everybody signed up to Roadmap ever, and then the people that have been paying us the most or longest. And if there were agencies and studios, we started contacting them, and I scheduled a call with them to hear their experience, why they are still paying us. Are you crazy? We haven't shipped a thing to Roadmap for the past 2 years.
That's interesting.
It's fine.
It works. I mean, it's a simple piece of software. It's elegantly designed. It's got a lot of utility, but it's not, you don't need to be constantly tinkering.
No. Which is why we have this on and off. People are kind of downgrading and then they're back, and then again, depending on the projects that you run. So yeah. And I mean, I don't know how it is for other tools, but we have some of the coolest design agencies and studios and freelancers using Roadmap. Like just featuring them on a page, we are good.
Yeah.
Because all of them are just so cool. They are doing amazing work, things that I'm kind of envying, and that will probably be a thing for the future. But we've been the branding designer that we have. He's been doing some great work on the branding side of things. So how we are communicating this new direction visually. So illustrations and the videos that we are making. Let me share my screen. Fuck it. Have a look.
Give me one sec.
By the way, in all transparency, like the website, the OFC's website currently, which is the one that is live now, in terms of conversion, it brought down everything by half. Signups, upgrade, everything, because it has this sidebar where you are able to actually click, and then people tend to not stay in one place on a product and take it seriously. They go, all right, roadmap, slim, sincere, about, out. So we are changing it.
So if you give people too many options, they basically click around and then they don't pull the trigger.
Yes. That's always the case. I mean, the best performing websites are the ones that, you know, there are no things in the header. There's just a logo, text, action. There you go.
Yeah, your funnel very specifically.
Yep. Yeah, I guess that's the terminology, funnel.
Yeah.
I like
we
these,
make
look like doodles.
Yes, so it's very experimental looking type of a brand, or at least a visual direction for this thing.
Do you use FigJam?
Using what? No, FigJam. No. Are you guys using it?
We tried it.
You guys using it?
I like it for like knowledge work because you can do mind mapping with it. Basically, it's like easy flows of information. It's me.
Basically. Is she the icon designer? Who is she?
Who is she?
I think so.
Is that her? That's her, right?
I think so, yeah.
What icon?
She did all the early Mac icons.
Oh.
She's still
including icon finder.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Go around and on the scene. That's cool.
Lisa maybe is her name.
It's fun to see everyone how people organize different Figma files.
There's no organization into this whatsoever.
Sure there is.
There's a bit.
I'm kind of bordering this mess.
Crazed. I don't know if I've ever seen a really nice organized Figma.
Oh, I've seen those serial killers.
Yeah, it's nothing that ever sees the light of day.
No. It's like an
the
OCD, like.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Animated.
Yeah, so you actually hover on a text and these things will pop up. Let me actually see the other one. That's not the. There it is. Cool. So on a landing page, we are, you know, when you're hovering the name of the products, we show a screenshot and then there's these illustrations. This is sincere, so just bubbles, chat bubbles.
Yep.
And for the slim, it's just something. So all of the information or data are pouring in. And I'm afraid I've lost the designs.
Lost?
Yeah, those files are nowhere. Like, where are the marketing website stuff? This is as organized as we can get, by the way. There is a system. Like, if you actually notice, there is like a iterations. Yeah.
So you build it up. Like, how does that build in? I haven't worked on any large scale Figma stuff, thankfully. I'm still like the last major comps I have other than like Ponder stuff is all in Illustrator still.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've skipped most of Figma.
Because you kind of learned on Illustrator, right?
Yeah,
So you stuck with it for as long as you could. You invested so
What?
much time.
Did you design interfaces in Illustrator?
Yeah, I was doing that like 12 years ago or something. I had all Carbon Made designed on Illustrator because it's vector. You could just trade. You didn't have to fucking. Photoshop was terrible for this shit.
Man, they should lock you up.
They should.
In Illustrator.
It's so good for stuff.
I've seen designers use that thing.
That thing.
That is just.
It's harder to share though. That's the problem now, right?
Well, Photoshop wasn't any easier. Anyways, the fact that we can do this right now, and then you can bring somebody in and they can fool with it, like trumps all the Illustrator stuff. But the tooling in Illustrator is like leaps and bounds better because it was built to, I don't know.
Do you still use it or now iPad only?
No, I mean, I haven't been doing a ton of design work. I use fucking paper mostly. Like just sketch out things, and then but we're starting to get into building now, little stuff. So I'm like sticking stuff together in Figma. Extremely lo-fi.
Well, you like to do some of your or most of your design work in code, right? Like, because you can fiddle with it.
I prefer to, yeah.
Only pros.
Yeah, that's me. Except for like now you have to set up a whole React app and none of the navigation works, and it's like a fucking everything is an abstraction. So
I love the roadmap one.
It's pretty good.
Yep, it's fun. It's satisfying.
Good.
Yeah, it's really cool. I haven't seen anyone do anything like this.
No, thank you. We'll be ripped off as soon as we push this online, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a phase like way back. This stuff comes around. It's just done really well. It matches. So
it's nice too because the illustrations are not super polished.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like, I don't know. People haven't been talking about that, but people don't want the super polished. I mean, maybe they are talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted it to be as experimental as it goes, because all of the products are so lightweight.
Yeah.
And we want it to be seen as a thoughtful kind of a process-oriented tools.
Yep.
So we don't want anything. We don't want the website to look anything fancy. We want the product to be the thing that speaks. But for the illustrations, given we are a small team, we're probably gonna create a bunch of resources. Anything polished would take us forever. And this just communicates how experimental we are with things, because I mean, there are a bunch of this stuff now, which he's been doing. This is cool. Sincere is done now, and there are some empty states for bringing your people, writing posts. It fits with the whole anyway.
Yeah, it's informal.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fresh.
We'll see how it goes.
What's that thing? Go left. I see a half horse, half woman, or half man, and then some kind of gargoyle eating a pizza. Just yeah.
That's inspiration stuff that he pulled from different sources.
Zoom in. Yeah, half woman, half horse. Nice.
Lady centaur.
Pouring a glass of wine on.
Yeah, reasonable. Mood.
Normal Wednesday, I guess.
Yep.
Wine showering. It's good. It's really looking good. Really like this. Well, anybody client facing, that's how we do privacy stuff in our company. CT client facing. Don't show them all of the secrets that I can show you the nightmare in the background. real quick. This is an actual client project.
Yep.
Nightmare.
I am so proud of the work that our two designers done on this project with the whole branding stuff. So this is a flow for people around, let's say, our parents, getting a quote for their insurance, manufactured homes and life term and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we are walking them or getting them through this flow where they need to quickly answer a couple of questions, and then we give them a quote on how much it would cost.
Mhm.
And this thing is really well designed, if I can say so. It's nice.
Yeah.
We were working on this whole hand-drawn illustration.
There's so much that goes into this, like the coverage stuff. Like you have to design so many surfaces.
Yeah, this pattern, like with the little blocks and stuff,
Yeah.
the different type of blocks. I wonder if there's like a generalizable like thing you can build with this. Snap these together. It's cool.
Yeah, man, this is a lot. Look at the.
This must have been really fun for them to do. When you have stuff to work with like this, it's cool because you get to visualize all this crazy shit.
They had the sliders too.
Yeah.
For like I mean, all kinds of different things.
Well, let me show you fun.
Holy shit.
Becoming
right.
form superstars. So
This is all. This is all of the iterations that we shown or presented to the client, right? I'll show you internally. We update this file twice a week.
Figma is seriously bonkers that it can run all this shit. They're nuts with their engineering.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah.
This was the starting point.
Yep.
We are just trying to figure out
Interesting.
how to do things. Well, this is not our first time doing it, so we already know how to tackle the flow.
Yeah.
To not overwhelm people. And
Adding the iterations like onto the one page or the one Figma doc.
yeah, so I
That's cool.
have undiagnosed probably OCD.
Diagnose what?
Mhm.
I can't. I mean, if somebody deletes an artboard, I freak out. And if they do it twice, they are fired. We keep every single version of things, and we just keep all of them.
Yeah.
If in real life I was like that, I would be that weird person that has just box within box and then just bunch of shit everywhere.
You're a digital hoarder.
Piling up.
Yeah.
Let me show you the internal file, which probably gonna take forever to load. And then you'll see all of the iterations on what I'm talking about, because just it's so easy for anybody to just come into the file and then see the thought process of the designer and like, oh, did you try? You did try this, and but you find something really good in the the past versions, and then you mix it with the current one.
Yeah, you pull it
and
forward.
That's where you get the.
Yep. I would do this all the time.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
how many people are working in this?
Holy shit.
This is 1.5 people.
How long does it take to do this much brainstorm legwork?
All right, so 3 drops away. This is 6 weeks. And we did the branding, marketing, the consumer facing product, and then now we are doing the agent portals and stuff, and then the admin, and we are done within 2 weeks.
So you do like design heavy. You think like there's a lot of design thinking that goes into this, and then once it's figured out, you basically just have to effectively print it out onto the screen.
Yeah, I mean, we receive documents from our clients.
Yeah.
And in most cases, they give us a pitch, and then we get that document done together.
Yeah.
like how to bring that thing into an actual product. And then we come here and then we start visualizing. We start visualizing that we get that document within the first 3 days. We get the basics down, what's absolutely necessary. Then we go, and from the third day on, we start just putting these blocks together. Like 3Drops has its own design system. So we just take those components. We don't design anything from it. We prototype things very quickly, and then we're like, all right, this is how the flow should be like. Once we have the 3 key flows, then we design the entire experience around it. Branding usually
prototyping the flows. Are you building this stuff at all, or are you just doing it with Figma's like prototyping thing? Like how do you, or do you just do it mentally with the flows? Like how are you trying them out?
I mean, we know where the main challenges are, design wise. So we are just focusing on those areas. Once those are solved, we just create a clickable prototype in Figma. Nothing fancy. We haven't built anything for our clients for at least 8 years, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah, we just built for ourselves. We just like, look how far we've got. And that was the basic info.
Yeah.
So how did it get built then? Someone else?
Yeah, so we partner with, here's what we found out. Like with 3Drops, the biggest value that we offer clients is the design work. They usually have a designer engineering team in-house, or they're already partnered up with with another agency on development work, which is much cheaper to have them given their experience rather than building your own team internally. And why design agencies are able to charge so much is because their work is truly unique. So there is, if you would like a web page to be built, most good developers would be able to build it in a very similar way. So their rates are very, they're weird. Their rates are.
Then he died.
He's gone. What was he doing to make it flicker like that?
I don't know. Something crashed maybe.
I'm gonna ask him. Curious about the detaching the back end like database structure, and like if there's any API stuff, like detaching that from design work feels weird to me, but I guess for some of these,
it depends on what you're doing here. So what he's doing is how I used to work too. I'm like, here's the whole thing, and I know it can be built because and so then it's like they get it built.
It's something, I don't know, like it's more common. Like there's like these things exist in the world. It's not that hard to build. Versus like a bespoke, like I'm trying to create like what we're doing, where it's like
there's no patterns that we can pull off the shelf. So but the forms, like the form stuff you're doing it's custom, but it's not like each one is a full-blown app or something. Like, you know, there's like a generalizable system in play. So
you know how you turn on the aircon and if the window is open, because of a change of temperature, you start getting just water drops from the aircon?
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Humidity of the place, I guess.
The aircon.
Aircon
450.
Yeah, we're in Portland right now, and the weather is really bonkers. It's like, it's cool right now. Lost him again. No weather talk.
I wonder what's going on.
I don't know.
Computer's on the fritz.
The water dripped into his computer.
I thought it was a spider at first, the way he was like.
Yeah, anyways, this is all that design work they're doing. It gives me a heart attack. I'm never doing that again. Those fucking gigantic Figma files.
We should talk about that with him.
Yeah. I just don't want to do that anymore.
Why it gives you a heart attack? I'd like to
It's
know.
just so much work. Like, it's fun though. Like, if you're in that mindset, I just can't imagine.
Being in that mindset.
Well, they're so warm. Like,
Yeah,
that helps, but like the youths, I'm curious.
the youths. What's going on over there?
My screen and I are not getting along today. I don't know, like it disconnects because I'm using an external screen, LG. Don't buy it.
5K one?
Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
the one I had?
that thing's a piece of shit. We had similar problems with ours.
It drove me crazy.
Yeah, I gave it to her because I got an iMac Pro, and I'm like, here, use this thing.
And then it was not worth his trouble because all the time I'm like, it's not working, and the Bluetooth and this,
Yeah,
and
I
he's just like,
fucking sold it. Yeah, it's a guy in what is it, Walnut Creek, California. It's his problem now.
Oh, really? I'm gonna give this to the fishes in the river.
Yeah, I was getting there. Yeah, how old are the designers? Like, I'm curious. Like, so they're popping out a lot of work. They're able to like iterate really quickly. Like, what is the? I'm curious about the age and then like the sort of temperament of these people. Like, yeah.
It's all right. So remember how we have constraints and we are just ruthless with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who the designer is, they need to follow the process.
Yep.
Which means I think the process works, and whoever designer that we assign on projects, the outcome is at the same level ish.
Well, you've selected, I mean, the system has selected for people of a certain type, right? Like, or within a certain type, like they have, I mean, they like to work through iteration. They like to work under the gun, right? Like these kinds of tendencies, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. How do you pick a good one when you're
how do you,
interviewing?
yeah, what are the
What do you look
character
for?
traits of somebody who works well this way?
Not under the gun like that. It's more of a, because I did try that in the beginning. It's very collaborative then.
Okay. Lost your audio.
Really?
No, you're back.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh,
just one sentence. It's
I don't
fine.
understand how the screen or the monitor is fucking all this up. It is outsized weight.
Yeah, it's just going out of its way to make things more difficult. Well, one more disconnection, and this is in the river. Yeah, age thing in the beginning. So my last team, fuck, like I've done 4 teams so far. I built from scratch, and first one was very chaotic. The second one too. Third one insanely good, and everybody were after us, and they took most of them after 2 years of work. And I think one of them got 15K a month at a company, and then he was like 22.
I ran into this. The same kind of thing. Find the young talent, they're really good, and then the second they get out into the market, people are just like, I'll give you anything you want. And then they go get anything they want, and then half the time it's like, I wish we would just stay working with you.
Anything.
Yeah,
they sit and they design a bunch of stuff.
Depends on the place, but
yeah, but no, I mean, for our case, it was a client reaches out like, hey, we want to work with you guys, and like, all right, this is the ranges that we work with. And then they would go to our Dribble page and then go after every single member on our profile and then LinkedIn too, and then just throwing offers. Like Griffith got so many offers, ridiculous offers, but he still stayed. Yeah. Anyway, but no more young people, like
Not too young.
ever. At least 25 plus.
Yeah.
So we don't go through your whole, I'm not really sure about what I want to do.
Yeah.
6 months into the thing, and then we put a lot of time into, I put a lot of time into like getting the designers into a certain way of work.
Yeah. Collaborative work.
Yeah.
Work. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That style? Yeah.
Well, like how you should do the branding projects product, because all of the designers that I hire, they're either an illustrator or a branding designer in terms of their iconography, but then I expand their skill set. So at the end, they become like full stack product designers. So one designer would be able to take a project from start to finish. So they become very good at almost everything with the designs.
I mean, this is worth teaching. I'd love to know how all this works. So anyways, it's super cool. If because you've got it working and you can prove that it works. And then you've got people who go through the process and they come out the other side with a set of skills that they didn't have coming in. That's pretty cool. Like it's a sort of enacted learning style, right? And you're giving them boundary conditions and work to play with in an environment that's like, they're not assignments, right? They're legit projects. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I never worked I mean, we had stuff at Carbon Made, like, and I would do collaborations or whatever, but nothing at this scale, outside of the actual like product of Carbon Made, which was big sprawling thing. But yeah, you're turning over a bunch of different, like really large canvas projects. So
to work this way in this style, you need a front runner, like a front man, like you, right? That's sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you're like transcending the time and the teams, like, so that there's some cohesion over time. Like there is a necessity for some sort of like anchor. Could it be different people, or does it have to be a single person? Like I'm curious, because that part is probably the most challenging part, because it takes someone like you who has this like vision and commitment, which not a lot of people have that.
I think I had a manager before, and I think I was burned out or something. I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna go for a trip in Europe, but I'm not gonna be around. And then we had probably 4 projects in parallel at the time, and I just dropped everything. And he took over, and the designers and everything went by just fine. The only thing is that, I mean, once we have a thing for, or the branding projects are usually done in this way in terms of exact time kind of frames that we apply to each stage of the project. And we know what's a good design or a bad design. We have it as rules, like with product designs, you know, you don't have more than this number of variations of a thing. So there's not more than 3 or 4 font sizes, or it's only grayscaled and there's only like 3 grays. Like we are putting a lot of constraints so you don't go off the grid. I think the only thing that I'm very easily replaceable whenever.
Good.
Yeah, but not the client pitching before getting a project. Like I recently got a project budget to go from, you know, around 20-ish to 100-ish. that is something that I really haven't been able to delegate at all. Somebody who understands what the actual meaning behind of a project by just talking to the founders. And then once you understand, hey, the problem is actually raising money, I can guarantee that. And I charge based on a result that I promise that I will bring. I put some pressure on myself, but just taking on this big kind of giving away these big promises. But we always, so far, I've been able to pull it off. Like similar to government project, we've never done a project in that scale in the past. We're like, we can do this. This is so Wednesday for us.
You know that you trust your process, and then you know the talent base that you've got, and then like you're going in representing that ability, and if it matches, like if the project matches, and you can also change the pitch to match your team, right? Like we know that we can do this, and like there's a vision that can be enacted if you have the alignment with the client. So like, yeah, feeling all that stuff out and being able to represent like your company, that one's a lot harder. I don't know how you teach that, like other than
on the job.
Yeah, just taking people into pitches and or however you want to think about it. Yeah, that one's
that's actually a part where with the agency stuff, as I'm like talking to a lot of agencies to understand where they are lacking, and it's just confidence in their ability to deliver beyond like unreasonable confidence, unreasonably applied confidence in areas that you never actually done, because you never done anything like this, but you should talk and act as if you've done it a million times and then present it as such. And you need to present it with a price that you never charged before. So I'm talking to these agencies and they're doing like remarkable work, and then their revenue is just 30K, 40K a month. I'm like, how? You guys are, first of all, so many. The works are so much better than the majority. And
I think we're digging into something here. So like, so there's I mean, are you pushing in? They just lack the confidence of the sales part of it, right? Like are they not pushing on that front, or the other thing that the other like line of thinking that we're working with here is what their internal process is for producing that work, right? And like, is every project a nightmare? Like, can they produce insanely good work, but pulling it together is like a completely bespoke operation where everything is like starting from, like I'm curious about, have you are they talking to you about this kind of thing? Like what their process is okay. So like, what are you finding generally? Like they have like an existing process that can produce good work, but they don't know how to sell it with confidence. Is that what you're running into, or?
They don't go out of their way to experiment and risk new potential projects, but just pitching it completely differently. Because once people find their safe zone, like this worked in the past.
Safe.
Okay.
So there is like, initially you have to risk, like there's risk in, like it's inevitable because you've never done it before. You're starting an agency, you've never done this kind of client work, whatever it, like you got to start somewhere. But then once they find the thing, they're just like, okay, this is it. Like we're gonna stick in this box. Okay.
They never go out of it. So they go, all right, this is our hourly rate, and clients now don't negotiate with us on this thing as much. So this is our sweet spot now. So when we say this, because they usually come back, they ask for discount, then we do this. They never go push back or stay firm on your price, or just have it as a principle that you never negotiate the price, but then try to be creative with other solutions that you can try. But then they are so worried about losing the client or lead that they don't risk it.
Yeah, it's a scarcity thing. And you can't, I mean, if you start getting in your head about this, like the confidence goes, and then you're just worried about keeping what you've got rather than like growing. It's a growth thing, right? Like, Yeah,
it's,
it makes
I
sense.
mean, it's scary. It is vulnerable. And you have to, like, if you're going to do something that is new, if you do land the client, it's more work. But it's a good kind of work, because otherwise you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then
Well,
that gets hard after a while. If you're just doing the same, like there's a grind. Like
the likelihood that that work is going to be there for any period of time is unlikely. I mean, it's going to dry up at some point if you're not. I mean, that may not be the case. There may be agency models where you find like a giant, but if you can do it like that pretty consistently, it means somebody else can, which means that the competition will come in at some point. Like, because if you can get it into an algorithm, it means that other people can, and then a computer will do it. So, yeah, yeah.
I'm curious, Farzad, how much you're aware of everything that goes into how you do what you do, that is like the CEO, like, or whatever,
Yeah.
like the hat that you put on when you're doing that. Because my guess is that it's pretty flow state.
Yeah.
Because you go in and you just start, you're like in the mix of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to be aware of it because you can't, you're in it. Like, you have to be it. I want to see you like this. I bet you're terrifying.
Oh my God, this agent and the whole house thing.
Yeah.
The first impressions of me is always that person is cold or serious, especially
Yes.
just lack of facial expressions whatsoever during the first few sessions. But as soon as I talk, it's fine. But with clients, yeah, there is no. I always wanted to, yeah. So two things. One, it was very difficult for me to hire a CEO or actually train them because I wasn't really 100% sure about how I'm doing things that actually brings results. So I started recording all of my calls. I'm like, oh, okay, so this works. So I could teach negotiation to people. So I no longer need to be the person to bring a cost down or bring a price up or keep it at the same level. They're just the same lines that anybody who can confidently say those lines, it works.
Interesting.
Basic thing is with is like, what's your somebody gives a rate and then you go before you even get into anything, this is too high, what is your best price? It's crazy what happens after that. So most people, especially designers, engineers, have a better way of thinking about these things. But because designers are so insecure, they drop the price immediately after that.
Why are designers insecure?
Yeah.
Is
weird.
It's in software specifically that we're talking about, right?
No, this is
no, all designers.
Is it more artistry? There's a vulnerability with it, and you're just like, I want to get I want to get something out of my work. Like, I need to know that it's worth something. I'll take whatever you can give me, sort of like what it ends up being.
I mean the self-taught ones, which is the majority, they don't think they earn it. But the ones that actually gone through the school, they are much harder to negotiate with because they go, I am worth this. But then if you're self-taught, it's like, I made this up.
Yeah.
So, you
know,
the
legitimacy thing.
Interesting.
I used to play with this all the time. I would just go into client meetings and like double my rate in the conversation. And then people would just agree. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm worth that much now. It's like, because if you're not afraid, if it blows, that's interesting.
How do you build that confidence though? Because I remember
you're a maniac.
Dave was talking to some sort of physicist. Remember, it was on that work trip in Hawaii, and they were comparing notes, and they had both gotten to sort of like the height of their career, and they were both talking about how annoying it was to be like good at something because it sort of gets repetitive, and when you're doing consulting work like this, and then they were laughing and sort of bonding over the way they tried to get out of the work is just
Oh,
by
yeah.
quoting higher and higher and higher rates, but everyone kept saying yes and like, sure, we'll pay you that. So it's kind of funny because at some point it's like, once you have that confidence and you believe that you're worth something,
Yeah.
other people believe it too.
Yeah.
So it's just owning the thing.
I mean, it has to be in lockstep with
What you're produced.
with having done work.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because there are plenty of people who sell, you know, and then they get terrible clients and the work is awful and all
Sure.
that stuff, because you can
You
have the
to be
confidence
delivered,
without the
able to deliver.
delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like,
How do you teach that then?
yeah.
So like you're saying, Farzad, I guess it probably helps people to have like, here's some lines that work, like they're proven, here's when to use them. And then you have to enact it and play with it. But
Yeah.
then if you're telling someone that, they're getting sort of not your like blessing or approval, but like your support. So there you've got someone in your corner being like, you can do this and here's how to do it. Like, go ahead.
Yeah. The lines help to quickly prove to you that it works.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
I say it, you say it, affect the same thing. So once they get past that, there is this thing within me, I can actually do this, pull it off. Then we get into the bigger stuff where you go,
Okay.
try to charge the client, not the project. So you don't try to estimate the project and okay, this is how long it would usually take and blah blah, and you send your estimate. Versus what's the financial state of this client, right? I know what they want to accomplish. Do they want to get to their next round? Do they want to bring in a client? So with the government stuff, I just wanted to know, because as soon as they are talking to you about a thing that needs to be done, you are just a doer of it.
Yeah, you're a production monkey. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then once you get into talk to them as you are, like eye to eye, because clients are usually looking a bit, especially depending on who you are talking to, the CEO or the founder. With the governments, it was, we are going to lose the contract, UK's contract, if you're not able to apply to ship this thing on time that is approved by their design system, blah, blah, blah team. And if UK comes on board on this new thing, then most countries will, because they are the most difficult ones with the most edge cases and such. Great. Can you guarantee that? Yes. We can definitely get them on board. There is nobody like us who can pull off the pressure and managing all of these stakeholders. And then you charge for the pain that you're gonna go through.
Effectively.
Yeah.
The only government work I've ever done has been like health program. It's not designing, it's not digital. So it's like program design or like research evaluation. And in my experience, there's like, it's all grant funded. So basically they usually give you sort of, maybe not, like you don't know how much money is available, so you have to like do this kind of like feeling out, and like you have to do a whole competitive analysis of like who the other players in the field are, so you kind of get your feelers out into the world, the people that are like super connected, like the leadership people, to know who else is like going in to apply for this grant. Sometimes you partner with them because you're looking at the playing field and you're like, there's no way we're going to win this unless we partner with that person. But what they end up doing is, after everyone like applies, because this is at least with federal grants in the United States, they have to publish like everyone who applied and what they pitched and like the amount they pitched, so you can start comparing. So it's kind of interesting, and you'll see some people, you'll like wonder how on earth are they going to do that at that price? Like there's no way that they're going to be able to deliver on that. And this is where there's an interesting thing that happens. So it's pretty like, it's weird. It's pretty rigid too. You have to do these things. Like they want you to follow like these steps. But in state government, what I found, it's similar but a little bit looser. And then once you get in with people and then you've proven yourself, you start getting other contracts. Like, and it depends on like what's going on. But like I've worked my way into relationships where it's basically like putting you on retainer. Like I want you around to like do this kind of like, it's effectively design thinking. Like how do we think about this? And then we'll figure out a way to like turn this into some kind of project based on, it's like bespoke, like your skill set, what's going on. Mostly because whoever's hiring you is just like, I don't know how to think about this. So it's a similar thing. Hire someone from the outside because you can't see it, you can't produce it. It's the design, like you're not going to get this in-house. You can't get it in-house. You need someone that's out, nimble, like different perspective.
Yeah, we're looking at probably doing something along this lines, like putting together some consultancy thing, using all of this to work with people so that we can push forward whatever we want to build, like with stakes. I don't know what the actual deliverables or anything, but like probably dropping into people's like really complex ideas where they need communication systems like across like weird areas. Like, you know, we were talking to, or well, one of the people in our little group was talking to somebody who's like putting together, he comes from finance and he's putting together an energy farm in Texas that's connected to a crypto mining operation. And so it's pulling together all of these different players that don't speak the same language, and they need some communication system to be able to model this whole thing. This is where we could step in and like just hold the space so that people can, I'm like, oh, you need to talk there. You need to put it in this kind of thing. This is a practice that you can do to like move the thing forward, building blocks that way. And then I think that we could build software like this to give us like a framework, and we just open source all the shit. So that's one way. I think that, anyways, it's overlapping with some of the stuff we're talking about. But yeah, it's interesting hearing.
Government stuff is really weird though.
Yeah.
Like the way that it works now is, I'm curious, Farzad, if this resonates with you. So the way that it works now is that there's this, like the government is controlling how money flows and how to prioritize things, but they don't really know how to do that. So they contract it out. This is like, there's this like repeat thing where it's like, we need to contract it out because we can't do the work ourselves because it's so big. And they're like,
it's an information problem.
They're inundated with like just the maintenance of like keeping the, it's,
well, because it's
just the machine. There's so much administrative work that goes into just holding it together.
Because it's wildly inefficient.
Yeah.
It's using fucking like paper cups and string to do shit. And the number of people who are incented to not get anything done, because what is the point? Like, do the bare minimum to keep the thing operational, which is fine. Like that is a mechanism
you
for.
Almost can't do more from within the system. If you try to do more, like it doesn't.
I'm talking about the nature of the system.
Yeah.
You can't do more because the system is natured in such a way so that you can't do more.
Well, it would get everything out of balance.
Sure, but that is how it is, but that's not how it needs to be.
Yeah. So that, like, what does the new government look like? That's what I'm interested in.
I mean, you have city-state examples like Singapore and these kinds of places that are like where the government roles are high status, they're highly competitive. How
did it get that way though?
So there's some stuff I was reading about. China did this too. You have the political class. I'm just broadly based on some stuff I'm reading, but you have a political, like politician class, and they're interacting in a sort of representative way, depending on what the government looks like, with the people. And then you have another group of people like effectively high performing elites that would normally go into finance or tech or whatever the hell it is, but they can get things done. So they work together.
I mean, this sounds like Farzad's agency model. You've got the like negotiator, like the Farzads who are doing the interface stuff, and then you've got the elites that are doing like
I'm reading this thing from Bryn Hobart in Palladium magazine where he breaks down like how the political structures, or like how like some of the like Japan, Korea, and China built their like this last round of like super growth after World War II, and how the models broke out. But it's usually these small teams or smaller groups of people who aren't in the limelight necessarily. They get status through moving things, and then the politicians can take, it doesn't matter because things are moving. And then there's a relationship to like finance because it's state backed. So you can build pressures into specific industries and make deals and mergers and stuff like this because there's state control over some of these things, which means that like you are no longer a steel, like you're producing steel and you're producing steel, and we want you to merge. It's not, there's no market force there because like there is so, and they have the sort of political clout to be able to do this, just get the thing done. Anyways, there are mechanisms to allow for this if it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like the Asian countries post World War II seem to have had a very different approach to governance and market and economy than the U.S.
Yeah, the situations were entirely different.
Yeah,
so
their experience in the war was different too, obviously.
But so closer to the ground, like, you know, I don't know how this stuff ties into government. I haven't had like near as much experience outside of watching my parents be people who work in government and seeing how just fucking glacially nothing gets done. It's just brutal. So
yeah, like my friend who's working at a FEMA like support call center.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I just do the bare minimum. I just do the job. Like, I just wanted to go there because,
it's nonsense.
Well, because that's like, she needed to like sort of like take a break because she was used to busting her balls. Like, she was just I need to
like government as work.
Yeah.
Vacation is something that I don't know about that being the healthiest thing for society.
It's unhealthy.
Yeah. So this is where the Web3 stuff comes in. Like these technologies are allowing for like sort of governance labs. So like, what's it like to put together a community of people or, you know, an organization of people that can enact these kinds of things and like move towards goals and like have a system of, you know, building, developing, whatever it is, and then profit sharing or, you know, I don't know, however you look at that, or redistribution based on treasury, you know, and voting and all these things. So, which is, they're little governments. Like, this is where you can play with these concepts. And if they're working to like establish things like public goods or, you know, services that are being offered, that, okay, these are models where people who are highly capable can come in and like say, I'm gonna work on this thing, get rewarded in some way, and then also have the reward of the thing actually working at scale.
What's interesting to me is like pulling back into like Farzad's model.
Yeah.
So you've got like the different, like these different components, because you have a client that comes to you and is like, I'm doing work in this space. Like they're an expert in that, right? And then you've got someone like Farzad and people like Farzad and you and me who are like, okay, let me understand what it is you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a translation there.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to you and they're like, we're in this place, we need something more than we have now. Like, what do we do? And then people like us are like, all right, here's what you can do, and you're selling something then. Like,
Yeah.
here's like a world you can inhabit, or here,
A vision, yeah.
yeah, or here's a piece of like design that can move you forward in your vision. Like, so there's like these discrete, like, they're kind of roles. They evolve, but there seems to be
Roles for whom?
different pieces. So there's like the experts in whatever the issue at hand is, right?
Mhm.
People who are working in this space, and they're like, I can't do this part of the job. I need to go out and get
Sure.
support. But in order to get to the support, you can't just go to the artists or designers or the engineers, because they're just like, wait, what do I do? Like, what do I need to build? So there's like this in between translational layer, it seems
Sure.
like, which is the hardest thing to describe and the hardest thing to encode. That's what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier.
Business designers.
Is that like is that the layer of software that you're talking about in like Web3 that allows for that communication? I mean,
Sure. I mean, I think that there's a bunch of sort of front lines here. What did you just say?
Business designers.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I wonder if, I mean, all of these people need communication tooling, but
So the Web3 thing, real quick. There's another this article, or not article, paper called Bao DAO. I forget, it's artist, economist type,
white
probably
paper,
out of,
right?
I don't know, it might be a white paper coming out of Berlin, a lot of this type of thinking, utilizing the like decentralized organization stuff. And particularly what he was poking into was like autonomous organizations running like real estate purchases, where you have like different groups of people that are invested in, say, a building, and the long-term vision of the sort of organization is to have the residents, which are,
Yep.
they're living in this building, and then you have like a group of people who are supporting the building, the in an investment way, right? Supporters, and they put in capital, and then the residents are buying back that capital, or buying back that equity, basically. So there's a whole organization, but within that group there are people who he was calling architects, and what the architects do is work with all of the logistics, work with the permits, the government. They figure out how the building gets built, right? Like what it needs to do in relationship to the residents, right? And they take a stake, like 3 to 5% on like the whole building process. They build software and communication tools so that the whole thing can work, right? Because it's a community effort, and you need to communicate like sort of the enactment of the overall building organization, right? There's like, we want to build this, we want to move in that direction. Like there's so that style of thing, that architect thing, where you are creating smart contracts now, you are encoding law so that the whole thing can run without needing an entire bureaucracy. You're just coding that stuff. So that role, I think, is more what agency type people are going to move into. Not agency, but like you need to build a whole system of governance and like interaction within a large group of people. There's design skills that go with this that are more like civilization design than like company design, and those things are related, but they're just different mentalities with the Web3 stack stuff. Anyways, I don't know if that made any sense. I can send you that paper. I think you pull a fair amount out of it. Yeah.
It keeps popping up in a lot of conversations in the past few months.
Yeah. It's the only way I can see building anything now. I don't know. I mean, we've got this working group and everybody's just trying to pick it up. I mean, it feels like the early days when we were doing SaaS stuff. Like there is very clearly patterns here. Nobody has done them yet. Like, so it's open territory, which means that even if you do the simplest versions of things, they'll work really well for now. Plus it's fun. Like, you get the amount of stuff that you can do with the structures is nuts. Like, they're so high leverage. But yeah.
Walk me through it. Like, what are you guys, what's been,
Sorry, I did use the restroom.
You should be sorry.
Well, I meant, so we can dive into the Web3, but you're talking the bow down. What was the connection? Just the end, because I knew the.
So like, he was talking about business designers.
Yep.
Right. Like, so you're putting together a package that works with, whatever entities that need to be,
Yep.
balanced out
Yep.
in some working process. So the architect role, like, which is basically
Okay.
creating smart contracts, working with
Blueprint,
governance,
yeah.
also building, like arranging the building to get built, arranging for people to maintain the building, like coming up with a maintenance plan, like interacting with the residents, also building a software layer so that the residents can communicate. Like, there's this all, and then you're getting compensated like in equity that then the residents will buy back from you.
Yep.
Over the course of like 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
That's just
transitioning out of the role, man. Yeah.
I think it's a good model to look at for the types of things that you could build as longer term investments. And if you are building software to do projects like this, that software can get encoded and you can resell it and it gets more efficient. And there's business stuff here that you could do pretty fucking insane projects with. Then there's probably some movement into governance and like larger scale civic things.
Yeah.
But
Well, the parallel to like a new form of governance is that there's maintenance built into the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, the maintenance level or layer in government now is what seems to be dragging. Like, it's not efficient. Like, people aren't talking. Like, keeping the thing going is just, it's really hard. Entropy is taking over. It's just.
I think part of we can table that, but the politics has become entertainment. Like,
Politics is different than governance, though.
I understand that, but they're inextricably linked in the public consciousness. Like,
yes.
And
but
so
in the reality of how it works, like, I mean, at least in the US, like, the people that do the actual work, they don't, like, the politics of the thing doesn't influence their like job. The people who are like in high leadership positions in government are typically appointed, and it's like attached to like a political figure, but like.
So they can't get anything done though. It doesn't, they're squeaking by with the bare minimum. So
it's disruptive. Yeah.
So there is some anyways, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It needs, I would have to look into
this
more.
Is why people don't want to do more than the bare minimum, because you don't know when the rug's going to get pulled out from underneath you, because some like a new political figure.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That there is an influence from the reality TV show that is like public facing entertainment politics nonsense. Again, this is the United States. I don't know how prevalent this is elsewhere, but anyways.
Table it.
Yeah.
So
what?
What are we building?
I don't know.
Or what is Web3? What's your question, Farzad?
what's been happening since we last talked about this? So the last time was the last time I really understood things. At least that's my perspective on things. Was when we were jumping into Figma, trying to do stuff together.
Oh yeah. that feels like 15 years ago.
We could show him the newest Figma.
No, this is a mess. Like, we can. Yeah.
Not for designs, but for like.
Yeah.
It's more.
I don't know if you could walk through that.
We could try.
You can try. I'll use the restroom while you pull all that up. Everybody uses the
bathroom break.
Yeah.
Right. I should do one.
Yeah, go. It's time.
Yeah, right. The opportunity clicks.
Didn't.
I've seen a couple of videos of you guys working on this.
Recent ones?
I mean, not the entire thing, but yeah, recent ones too.
And that's what
Yeah,
that's what this is.
that's what.
So, I mean, that's effectively where we're at. Like, depending on, yeah, we're
Whoop whoop.
Why did that's weird? Figma.
doing.
Get rid of the UI because it's stupid. You don't need that.
Yeah.
So, like where we're at right now is trying to figure out how we can post together using our own software. Which we started talking about, and like how do you build in like in this way?
Yeah.
I don't like, how do you differentiate how this is different than building in another way or in the like the old way?
So
Yeah.
I don't know how to articulate
I
that.
can give you, I mean,
Yeah.
so stylistically, like we are working with proposals. That's the primary thing here, right? Like assume that there is a large group of people, and that group of people, they are all incented to build something like this, right? Like, and the general project that we're working towards is this like relational OS. And it's the shortest pitch I have now is that like there is imagine an operating system where everything that you put into the operating system, images, video, text, like audio, all of the basic primitives of communication that we have digitally now are the system is aware of how they're related to each other in time, in space, in relationship to other people, in co-authoring, all of that stuff. And then if you have that as a premise, like say you do a Loom video, right? There's a Loom type thing where you're recording something and you're working in Figma. It knows you're doing all of that, right? And that's encoded contextually. So what that gives you, and that somebody else is also working in there or whatever. And then all the blocks of the types of things that you're making are media Legos is what we're calling. So we're building a protocol or we're designing a protocol that people can tie into and build with this mentality in mind, which means that all of these things are cross-compatible. All of the artifacts of media are cross-compatible, which means that they can be remixed and built into different things, and you can query them. So the views in the relational OS are all based on queries. And the information landscape is based on a graph, which means that like, you can say like, show me all of the things that Kristen made minus this stuff, you know, plus that, you know, and far more complex queries. And that gives you a view of data that you can pull back. And these things are the basic primitive in the system are media blocks. You can pull a bunch of those over, put them in a canvas, right? Show that canvas to somebody else, push it online because everything is available all at once. That's the native behavior of the thing. And so then the permissions are, you know, so this is the sort of landscape that we're working in. The way that these things get populated, the engine of it are games. Like there is a concept that is basically people can come together, like 4 of us are going to look into some specific area, you know, say we're gonna take a look at that Bow Dow article, right? Then we're gonna produce our thinking in relation to that. It's gonna go into the system. Anyway, so these are sort of generalizable concepts that we have. And the way to get here to build this thing is to enact it, like to dream it into reality. And no one person is leading this thing.
Yeah, I think that's the key part. And
because it's too big to do with a tiny team.
And it's not been done before.
No.
So it's not using any like sort of like back end or front end that people have done before. So how do like
Well, it's taking advantage of patterns that, I mean,
yeah, it's
part of the
familiar, but it hasn't been stuck together in quite this way.
No. So part of the landscape that makes this thing possible is that the Web3 ecosystem and economy system allows for people to contribute to a project like this and then get rewarded, right? Without like us having to contract it out. Like we have money and we're like, we're going to give that money to like an open market. And then, you know, it's you do the work and then you fuck off. And then we continue to, we own it, right? The model here is we are stewarding this thing into existence because we have the most sensitivity to this idea, but the idea is everybody's idea. And so we will reap the benefits of working on this thing, mostly because we want it to exist. I think it's a better way of putting your thinking and media into the internet, right? And then I want to be able to see how it all connects to everybody else's stuff. I want to be able to easily collaborate with people anywhere without having to worry about like moving this fucking file into this fucking thing and then piping it over there or whatever. I should type the thing in. It's in a state that like is relative to all other things. And then I can just spit it over anyways. So what the Web3 stuff allows and the decentralized organizations allow are governance and sort of monitoring of what got made and how it got made. And then you need systems to allow for like a collective to think this thing into existence, like so that you can take advantage of all of the crazy amounts of talent that are out there that might be incented to build this thing, right? And then manage what that overarching worldview needs to look like in the instantiation of the project, right? And so the first thing we're doing here is like, because we can all, like the group that we have all built tons of stuff to, you know, individually. So we all have very different like build styles. So what we're trying to do now is get ourselves into tiny projects so that we can negotiate the best way to propose and build together. And a lot of it is like just barfing out your best idea in the smallest form that you can so that other people can take it and understand better what we're trying to build. So it's this like very slow, it's so slow right now. But if you develop this language, you can start moving faster and faster is the mentality, I think. So that's some stuff. I don't know. What else?
See if Farzad has any reaction to that.
Let's see.
What a big thing.
It's enormous.
Because it's big, you have to work this way. Otherwise, it can't come together.
I understand what I was watching now then.
Yeah.
Because you guys were talking about what a block is in an entire call. I'm like, what's happening? Now I understand. Tell me the most exciting use case for this. So you are saying that the relation, like you want to work on something, so it brings all of the things that it's the network of, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean throw it somewhere else?
So this is where I have a bunch of patterns in my head that need to be like sort of brought into existence. But so there are a few use cases that how the best way to do this?
Well,
like,
wait, like this is work and life.
Yeah.
This is everything. So If I'm using, is this an OS? Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
This is an
Yeah.
OS. So this is actually gonna replace Mac OS, or
I mean, great.
this is
Sure.
just
I don't
a
know.
web.
Theoretically, but it's more of like a software
Yeah, like
layer right now.
if you let me think all the way through, it goes to hardware, it goes to devices. Yeah, I mean, but
Yeah,
We don't let them do that now.
I'm not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So the
this
short
is
term,
overwhelming as it is. Let
Yeah.
me ask a bunch of stupid questions,
Go
and
ahead.
then I understand things a bit easier.
Yep.
In my stupid way. So you would actually build a tool for every little thing that is already been built. So a note taking, a drawing thing, because then it's built with this system. So it's everything is shared among people. It's all connected.
It's
And
like
there is that it, yeah.
protocol, right?
So what on that note, what we're trying to figure out is the best way to pipe in existing tools that create like doodles or photos so that we don't have to build all of the different
No.
like
Just build the ones that we want for now because we're going to use them. But anybody can build anything on this. That's we're giving away. We're like the protocol only exists if other people agree to build on it, right?
Yeah.
It's an agreed upon thing. So like we're doing right now the first version of an interface that can produce blocks, right? And then we're going to use that thing to produce more interface and more of the back end of the infrastructure. But if somebody comes along and they want to like create a 3D block or whatever and a viewer for 3D blocks using, great, cool. That means then that exists in the ecosystem.
Yep.
You make it open source, other people can tie into it. You start to get a media landscape that starts to build, right? There will be some instantiations of this that are like, it's a Tumblr thing, right? Like we only show, you could rebuild Tumblr on this, hopefully extremely quickly. Like
Yeah, right.
anybody could have a Tumblr. And if you can get people to come in, like you don't need to do authentication and everything because people have like an Ethereum wallet and they just connect to the thing. We don't have to store any of that fucking data. The blockchain does. Like the identity managed. And so like, and then you can open up this stuff in any other app that allows you to view it, right? So, and then part of the apps, the way I look at this, apps are games. They are a set of things to play to get content into the system. So if you can create a good game, people will come in and like, you know, so for instance, like a writing game or something like this, like where you're offering prompts and then people answer the prompts and then their stuff is in the system and it can be remixed, blah, 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 blah. Get it? Did you get it?
Wait, Ruby on Rails plus Coinbase plus.
Yes, all of these things. That's what
Yeah.
Web3 is. All of it. Piles on piles and all of it, all distributed across networks.
This is a thing that you can go homeless on. You know what I mean? Like it's so big that like everything else becomes small. So like if there is a purpose in life, so this should be it.
I mean,
just
why
bringing this
anything
into
else?
existence.
Yeah.
And it's
this is a force function for pure collaboration.
Yeah.
Because you can't hire people in. So
Nope.
in like the group that we're working with now is really interesting. Yesterday, we started talking about how we work, like technically, like how do you build software? How do you work with teams when you're designing something big? And people get a little bit cagey and weird and self-conscious because everyone's doing it differently. And we want to bring it to the group, but how do you do that and make space for everyone's unique style? It's really cool. Like people are like, because we want to figure out how to do it. And a lot of people have worked mostly as independent, like entrepreneur, creative types. And that is fine, but we want to do it together now. Yeah. So how do we bridge that? That's the coolest part for me. Watching people who are like, we want to work together. We don't really know how because we're trained in ways that are so different. Yeah.
Which is a fractal of building anything like complex that needs to exist in the world. And so if we can build tooling to let us do this, then the likelihood is that other teams that are building complex, weird shit that overlap, because the world overlaps now everywhere, right? Like everything is gradating into everything else. And so because the internet just opened up the doors on everything. So like, how do you fucking communicate between all of these different languages? That's part of the layer that I find the most interesting, like media translation effectively. Like, how can you take different perspectives and then combine them into like a hypermedia form so that anybody can sort of take a look at it? Yeah, I don't know. That's where we're at, like media tooling wise. We need things that work like that. Like all the information's available, but it's disconnected, and it's also being mediated by all of the big tech companies who just put advertising on top of everything and fuck everything up. So yeah, there's that.
Wow. Have you talked to anybody that built open source tools? Like, because I think like anything that I know of, they were engineers, and then one person or two pulled off probably a few hundreds of all-nighters to build the Lego pieces, and then like, here you go. Now there is some kind of a governance for how things are reviewed, or to make sure nobody's stepping on each other. And then it went out, and then people are just building on top of it. But then how you are doing it is just like, let's just build the Lego pieces now, everybody together.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this Urbit thing.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into it.
What is it? I've heard of it, but
it's your own like operating system kind of thing. It's very nerdy though.
okay.
Decentralized personal server platform. Like,
Yeah.
those words shouldn't even be next to each other. I mean, what is it? Personal server platform, and then decentralized. No, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
6 to construct the client server model in a favor of it. Yeah, okay.
We're doing like similar things, but not saying it like that. So like ideally the audience that we're trying to serve, they don't care about any of that stuff. It'll just work like it should. So like, you know, like the IPFS stuff, have you looked into any of that? The interplanetary file system stuff? Yeah. So if the backbone of where the media is stored is IPFS, it's available everywhere, right? It's available to all things that have access to that thing, right? It is available to all apps that have access to IPFS effectively. You're not storing it with Google. You're not storing it with Amazon. Like, you're distributing the thing out. Okay, so if that's a given, then what does the interface layer look like with people? Like, it's more lots of little interfaces that give you experiences of working with your media that are like bespoke to task, right? But what is the system that's containing all of these things, right? Like, this is where I'm like, well, there should be an OS. Yeah, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. Now I understand why this needs a hardware too. Sorry. Em, you okay? What happened?
Just ran into a wall.
It happens.
Yeah.
To the best of us.
Like, fuck. Have you guys brought this down to like, what is that first thing?
The first thing that we're building together in our next group is a text area with a button.
Oh, so fun.
We start there. And then the most recent video I think Kristen put up, like I put together a flow of the like smallest possible instantiation of like a block communicator thing. Like it's based on the Ponder stuff I was doing. Like it's got this chat interface, and each time you hit enter, it creates a block. And then you stick a bunch of blocks together, that's a post. And then you have a screen up above that that's a list of all posts, right? That's a query that says all, right? But then you can also have a query that says
Kristen for
Kristen,
my profile.
yeah.
Dave for his profile.
all members minus Kristen. It's a browser. So the new metaphor is moving from desktop to browser as the basic like onboard. And then how can we expand the browser out into like a new like operating system interface? And then what are all the new patterns that we need with it's online first. It is collaborative first. Everybody is connected by default. What are the patterns with that, right? And you need to be able to look, to look through large quantities of information that are related. And so you can navigate by relation. Like you move through things. There's a big node of lots of things are related to this. Like, so go start there and then move outward. So there's all these navigation patterns. And you need to be able to take any of those things and remix them, ideally on something like Figma, a canvas. And then you can build new forms and stuff like this way. I don't know. There's a billion things that my imagination is limited by the group of people who are playing with this thing. That's the limiting factor. So yeah.
I get that big time. But I was going to say something. Yeah, first off, how many years have you guys put aside? Months, years?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, minimum before, I think you start seeing significant, this stuff goes so quick if it catches. So I don't know, but.
No, I mean, like how long to be 100% on this full time until?
I think that part of the model is that you can dip in and out, but I see minimum 10 years of playing around with this. I'd probably go as long as it's around. But the way that the roles work are, you don't have to lead the thing forever. You can hand it off to other people. And then like, if you still have a stake in it, you can come back in, play around. Like say, for instance, it's a huge playing field. There'll be events, there'll be, community stuff. There'll be like, maybe I want to build an app within the ecosystem. So I go pull a team together, we build an app for a little while, like contribute back that way. Maybe I want to work on the economy for a while, right? Like I'm done with the UI stuff. I'm interested in like different governance models, right? Maybe there's a push to move the software in like talk to governments or corporations. So I'll go do some sales for a while. You can change your role around to do whatever within the ecosystem, partnerships, something like this. So however long that stays interesting. And if you've designed the game well enough, the overall game, there should be plenty of things to play with. Yep. So that's how I think about this rather than like a specific time commitment. And each one of those things can be a business. It can not be, I don't know. I think that I'm hoping that we find people too here that we want to collaborate with on things like even like real estate, like living together in different ways so that there's like a network of places that we can go around the world too. So whether or not that happens, I don't know. That's the way I'm thinking about it though. Like it's a serendipity generator. And the types of people that are hopefully contributing to this thing are people who are like, they're not super worried about making money, right? They're worried about building things that exist in the world that are super cool like this, that are useful, that are helpful. There's a sort of sacred, it's got a churchy feeling to it a little bit, right? Because you're coming to this thing like looking to give back, to give away, right? Like, because you can't take it with you when you die. So it should be fun in the meantime. Don't know. Those are all some things.
Yeah. I think every single person that wants to get involved in this, it takes a good 6 months of deprogramming.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
But
it just
fine.
breaks.
Some people longer.
Yeah. Some people like they can feel it, but like the reality of it is not there, right?
Yep.
Like I've been out of systems for
Forever.
fucking yeah.
20,
So
30 years.
I'm real comfortable here. And there's more people like this. And our role is to get it to a point where it's viable for people.
Yep. Wherever
So,
you're at.
Yeah, get that 6 months down to a month, get that month down to no time at all. So yeah. That may take years and years and years.
Yep.
That's fine.
Got to start somewhere.
Even with these things, there needs to be something that people need to agree upon. Like there needs to be a common ground. There is this manifesto, whatever beliefs it is, which is gonna be like yours, which gonna be the bourbon. So glad this thing is actually recorded because everything was said on this call.
Yeah, we've been well with every person. We get a different opportunity to explain it, and
Yeah.
like because you've built all this stuff, you can ask questions that are related to time frame and complexity and mindset of adoption and all these kinds of things. So like that's super helpful. Like, I mean, if we can continue these conversations, they'll get fleshed out, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like the back to the thing that we were talking about, like you and I are going to build a blogging network together. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. What a what a dumb
that's
decision
fine.
that
We
is.
can though. With this, we
I
just,
mean,
like,
this is
you put a proposal out and like, here's the thing that we envision. Who wants to build it? And people show up and they want to, I'll build this piece and I'll build that piece. And then you have a system of communication to get so that it builds itself. So we don't have to run it.
the idea is there. I mean, there is a framework here. There's a lot of how life should be lived. This is life. Actually, life on a personal level should have a a name. Same like we have work. There is we don't have it. Anyway,
The word in philosophy is
it's a way of living, huh?
the word in philosophy is ontology, being.
Okay, great. Yeah, being actually.
Yeah.
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing here is attracting so good engineers that make these puzzle pieces as simple as it possibly can get.
Yeah.
The core like IKEA simplicity in how easy it is to just put them together and to create things.
Yep.
If you have that,
It's like Legos. You want to build with them.
I mean, anybody would just come in and then build stuff with it. But then you would need to give them different pieces at a time, not getting them everything. So you can't do these kind of things in the thing now. Text and this, and then people come on top of it.
It's the idea. So yeah, it's like a language. It's like an alphabet. How do you build your alphabet pieces? What are the letters? How do they build sentences? What can you do with all of that? So building really good primitives where they're very simple and they lock together in a way that's like rudimentary, right? But you can build these elaborations on top of.
this shouldn't be designed for at least the first 2 years. Any form of visual thing on top of this gonna put limitations on it.
You have to put something on it to play with it, right?
Yeah, you have to use it.
It
So
needs to be so naked
it's fine.
and so singular, then because you need UI to be
Mhm.
go multi-view. You know what I mean? Like, but if you don't have a design, it's just one thing is always in the view, then you don't
Yeah,
need a design
this is
for it.
where, like, as soon as possible, getting people. So the way we're thinking about it, and the engineers that are working on this are get it into a form, like document it, so that anybody can pick this up and start goofing with it.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
my interface that I've like barfed up is probably the least interesting of all the interfaces that could be made, right? It is just
Basic.
what I'm trying to think about is like, here is an expression of how it works, not how it should work, how it can work.
Yep.
This is just my version of it. This is a version of a game. So this is where they are cartridges like on a console. This is just a type of game that you can play, but here's a whole library of games. So we're offering like the basic pieces so that people who can build games can come build games. And if there's an incentive structure here, if there's an economy here, this is where the economy comes in, where people can like, well, two sides of the economy. You have people who are producing works, and they can be compensated for the production of those works, right? Like there is an innate like money component to this thing that can be managed with smart contracts, where you can have banking mechanisms, you can have profit sharings, you can do all of these things. Like Mir XYZ is probably doing the best like experiments with this so far.
What is it?
Mir.xyz. It's where all of the like sort of best thinking is being published on Web3 stuff now. And it's a big crypto game where people are publishing together.
They're sort of like crowdfund
essays. Yeah, and our particular instantiation of this thing is that these things should be done in squads, in groups, together.
Group level. Yep.
Like doing this individually is terrible. Like there's too much complexity. It's more fun to collaborate as a group and then publish as a group.
Done too. Yeah. Like there's a depth to what you can do. Yeah.
Sharing a brain.
We've been doing everything so individualistically as society. So this is in response to that, I think.
But like to your point about the UI, one of the things that I'd like to do as like a season of the game, right? The overarching game is like pick something like, I don't know, uploading or like moving blocks around or whatever, and then sort of open up the playing field for people to offer proposals for design patterns, right? And like, there's got to be some way, it's not necessarily a competition, but like, maybe a hackathon style thing, people getting together to build like UI components that then get put into a public pool where people can then iterate on those things. So you get this burst of creativity, and then you can sort of solidify it into your, instantiations, like your different apps or games or whatever it is. So like share patterns across the community, because if you can grow your patterns together, like the thing will get a lot more, the affordances on the thing, it'll get a lot more usable. So I don't know. And if people reuse those patterns and there's like some royalty system or some way of being compensated based on that work, then you can make money doing this. And if big apps are using it, and all the stuff is on a chain, so like you can retain some percentage equity in the patterns that you're making. I don't really know how all the accounting works there, but that's the kind of stuff that I find interesting.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. This puts every other project into shame. Because yeah, interesting.
It's emergent. There's an emergence here. There's like a whole confluence of things that go into Web3. And because of the way Web3 at its fundament is designed, you get all of this so much easier than you do in
Yeah.
Web 2, Web 2.0.
Yeah, it works best when you work like this.
Yeah.
So it's about designing constraints and funnels and like games to get people together to just do the thing they know how to do already,
Because
right?
it's premised on an abundance, right?
Yeah.
Of like technological capacity, whereas Web 2 was premised on a scarcity of it. Like
Yeah.
there's a shift there because we live in such an abundant informationscape, technological landscape. Like there's so much on offer. It's overwhelming. So how do you sort of narrow it and
Yeah.
work with that? Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that.
Like-
I was always thinking, like, sorry, huh?
No, go ahead.
No.
Like, there won't be any other world war as we've seen it. If there is gonna be, there is definitely gonna be something,
Mhm.
but it's gonna be tech.
Yeah.
Can see that.
And Web3 is probably it.
There's already an assault on like people's brains are getting hijacked right now, like
Yeah.
with the culture war stuff, with the internet. Like people are using the internet to get like brain worms into people's heads, and then they can't see the world other than this one way that someone told them on the internet, and it's not necessarily based on any reality. And I mean, people are giving money to causes, they're losing relationships because of this. There's like they can't talk unless it's based on these like lines, like war lines. Basically, I see things this way and you're just, and then someone else sees things another, there's an argument. So
yeah, it's the
it's like a distributed war.
yeah, so there's writing on the culture war. Like there's a decent article by Peter Lindbergh about culture war 2.0. It's on Medium, which gives a like decent look into how like all the subcultures are online, and there's the whole thing there. But the part of it that we keep like we're circling, and I think you have an interest in this too. Like, so there's human computer interaction, right? There, that HCI as like a sort of a field of study, right? Which is like, how do human beings interact with the like computing surfaces, right? And mentalities and these kinds of things. And that's fine. It's sort of impersonal though. It's like, what are the like mathematical things of a vector of a cursor moving across a screen? There's all that stuff. That's fine. What we're interested in is human computer relationship. So like, what is your relationship to computing environments? How do you interact with algorithms? Because the long-term version of this thing is like, we are collecting extremely clean data, and those data can be used for creating machine learning models. And those machine intelligences are going to be a part of this operating system, and you'll be able to collaborate with them like they're a peer, right? So what is your relationship to that collaboration? How does it work? How are you and also like, what is your relationship to being online? Because that's not going away. Online is a substratum of reality now, right? So like, how do you move from like being in the forest into like typing out your thinking? Like, do you have to be in Slack? like the fuck, it's so jarring, right? And people hate it because it's just screaming at you all the time. Like, I don't want a relationship with that. It's uninteresting to me. I want something that like the cooperation with computing produces something transcendent, larger than could have been produced if that relationship hadn't happened, right? and there's an equal party thing here. Like the computers are doing the things that they do well, the logics, right? And humans are doing the things that they do well, humaning, whatever that looks like. And then the relating, I mean, and the crossover there is where we work. Like, how do you make sure that both parties are healthy in that environment and are getting what they need to grow effectively?
And that's a fractal of what we were talking about earlier with the work that you're doing, Farzad,
yeah,
with the interaction with clients.
Yes.
Like that interface is where the magic happens.
Yep. That's where the biggest friction is. That's where the translations need to happen. And you can do a good one and you can do a shit one. And like, there's a craft to that. There's an ethos to that. There's an instantiation of practice. Like, I'm going to approach this because the outcome, I'm going to approach this in a way that I have intentionally, like, I am trying to be aware of what's happening, because the power output on this stuff is enormous. So like, if you give somebody Facebook, like, you can ruin a society with it. So like, you know, we're playing with these kinds of things now, which means that you need wisdom to fucking work with this stuff. Like, and it produces better things for people. There, you know, it can make their lives better.
In the beginning, you need engineers to do this, and then you need to kind of humanize it so normal people understand what Web3 is.
Yep.
But then for this to become a thing, does Web2 need to die or not? But does it matter?
There's
no,
a
it would probably
Web2, you know, like
people would rush to adopt this because of how the information about these type of services now that are being used by people, how they are collecting the data and they are being the slave of their own.
This stuff just has to work better.
I think the Web3 stuff will be, for a while, a harder sell because it's more participatory too. You're going to have to do more work in the early days, and most people are not interested in that, which is fine, because the people who are the ones who are ready for a change and they're willing to work for it. So that's good. They're the ones that are sort of trailblazing.
Yeah, it selects for people who want to have more agency in their life. Like, they don't want to just consume shit all the time. There's that role that can be there, you know, but more and more, because the means of production are being democratized, it means that more and more people are being spit out of the institutions, because the institutions are like, we're designed around a time that we needed to organize mass groups of people, but we don't, that mechanism for organization doesn't work anymore. And so more people are entrepreneurial because they need to be, right? The gig economy and all these other things move in that direction. So you have this mentality that like, okay, like, I need to do things on my own, or with small groups. Ideally, that's better, right? Or with a tribe or something like this, rather than like getting a paycheck from a company that has like 30,000 employees and whatever the fuck that shit is. That's fine. That's not going anywhere for a while. But like, this is an alternative path, right? And if there are mechanisms for like making money together and investing together and like spreading the risk around or whatever, it's more fun. You're not like, it's not you versus the market where you're just going to get eaten alive. So yeah, anyways.
I like the double entendre of people who want more agency in their life.
Yeah.
There's something in there for what you're doing, Farzad.
Basically.
Take it into your own hands kind of thing. Agency. I don't know.
There's double meaning in there for sure.
We empower our clients.
Uh-huh.
Might be too high-minded.
There's something in there, but it takes some walking too.
There's nothing wrong with using Slack for now, though.
It is what it is.
We have to use these tools unless you're going to rebuild everything from scratch. Like, it's like you can't.
Yeah, it's I mean, these we can, so the stuff that will stick from Web 2 is a lot of the interface patterns we've made. We still have screens. You still need to click them, right? You still just the underlying logic of what gets clicked and how the information moves around. Web 3 is a lot more about a back-end revolution than a front-end one. So
Okay.
like the
So
design pattern,
front end limits the back end though.
they have to be built in collaboration. The best ones are full stack gradients all the way through. The person who is in the front end understands how the logic in the back end is moving through, so that
Yeah.
like the thing feels like it's it's cohesive. But to the skill set that you've developed or whatever, and the like the design stuff, if you can understand the underlying stratum, right? There are new patterns to be developed around the Web3 stuff. Far more back-end patterns than design patterns, I think. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I have a feeling of it now, because it's mostly just rejiggering how all of the data is structured and where it's stored and who gets access to it. It's more democratized versus these
Design gonna die.
design.
No.
Yeah.
I think it flourishes because more designs can get made now.
No way, but
The kind of design you're thinking, maybe.
yeah. So it wouldn't. Brands would die. Designs
Yeah.
would die.
Brands
That's
are fucked.
yeah.
I think brands are done.
Because your design will no longer be a selling point. Visually being different than others, because there will be just one doing one thing.
No,
And
I mean,
I'm thinking with like if we take this,
Is that brand?
there's just
I
like one browser. There is not 2 or 3 browsers. And then if it just scales from there and it gets applied to our normal lives.
But then the apps within the browser, or like what you're trying to do, like those will need brands. It's just less, I think it's probably less flashy.
I think we are just all contributing to the same thing. There wouldn't be different variations of it under different names. It's just the same thing.
just like people. I mean,
Yeah.
there's more room for the uniqueness and depth of people in
Which
this.
that does need to be communicated. So that's where brand and like advertising and design, like to be able to express what the thing is, so people understand. Like it's a UI thing.
There are new modes
UX.
of sharing, of broadcast, but the information landscape has changed. Brands worked within a media
Broadcast.
environment
Yeah.
of broadcast where you have lots of consumers.
Yep.
And then what you do is you concentrate a voice.
Yep.
And then push it out, and then you retain consistency over time, so that people can have a relationship to this device.
You know how with fashion brands, we have, in order to kind of understand how you can become an innovative brand, you need to actually go to the basics of the thing that you are making, how it is manufactured, and then start from the machine and all of the materials. The future is run by engineers. Like no longer I feel like there is a choice of should designers code or not. I mean, you have to.
You have to be technical. You need to be able to express. You have to understand the medium you're working in. That doesn't mean you have to write code, but you need to know what code can do.
But I feel like everything now merging, in a sense that there is no separation between design and dev.
Yeah,
we are all using the same
correct.
puzzle pieces, just like spoon is that, and then fork is used for that thing. We are all contributing to the same things, not create, because the only reason that we are creating versions of things is because we want to own it. So that's now out of the window.
That is one reason that now, like, owning it isn't worth as much anymore, because everybody
pointless. Yeah, because and then the whole thing of I mean, if everything is decentralized and we are all living on this blockchain, there is nothing to show off for. So what? Wow.
There's
Yeah.
still
Okay.
individual heroic acts and stuff like this, but it moves though. To me, it moves to the small group. What can your small group do together? Like how, because that small group can be really smart and really creative. It's studios, it's bands, it's this kind of thing. And like if you're, how do you work together in concert, and then how do you work with larger groups to make bigger works, right? Like it's less about personal aggrandizement and personal property. Those two things are, we've done it. We've been doing it for 500 years. It's time to do something else. Like, and it can't be all collective, like, you know, China, where there is no individual agency or whatever. The state runs everything. Like you do what you're told. Like you fit within these little, I think that it's not good for people, right? But it can't be fully individualistic, like in the United States, where everybody has a fucking castle and they fill this castle full of shit and they're lonely. So there's like some middle ground where you're sharing things like in smaller groups and you're building things together, and it's fun. Like it's playful. Like you get to engage with the world in that way. Pitch.
If e-commerce being just like software, the essentials, it took 20 years, 30 years to become a thing, which is now we're all like it's just everything now, e-commerce.
It's like still only like 30% of commerce is online.
Yeah.
It's still tiny.
So 30 years though.
Yeah.
So Web3 and this whole blockchain well, it would grow at a much faster rate because of how the information is shared now. But
Well,
10 years, that's pretty.
Yeah, we're looking at how I see
10
it.
years?
I think that we will be using something like this if it's something like the things that we're talking about building. Like if it's our thing or somebody else's thing, like within the next few years, one of the, like, we're going to start. Yeah. Maybe even sooner than that.
That's like 3 drops in 4 years. We are just turning everything. Yeah, like opening everything that we've designed until now and then decentralizing it. You've got like now digitalizing it, and now next step is like decentralizing it.
I mean,
you're on the right, like,
yeah, you're already
direction, though.
You're already aligned with this. Like you're aligned with the way things are going to be built. So I would tell you if I was worried about your approach. Like I think that like starting to read about this stuff and bringing it into consciousness, the people that we're talking to that are doing this are extremely bright, and it is taking all of us researching it and building it to even like conceptualize this thing. So that means that the larger society, like, or consciousness is decades behind. You know, who knows?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, so we're like the first wave was probably 8-9 years ago. And then it's all super nerds and engineers and finance people and you know, like crazy abstract thinkers. I caught on 2016, 2017 because I wanted to play with the weird money.
Oh yeah, the money front ran this one.
It's all coming from money.
Yep.
And the first rounds of these things are all going to be like DeFi, right? The moving from traditional finance to decentralized finance, because that's where the biggest opportunity is. And the stuff that's happening there is just fucking, it's lunacy. People are just throwing bodies at these problems because there is so much money to be made. I don't care about any of that. I like to know what's happening there, but I'm not going to put myself in the meat grinder there.
People just love making money.
It's a game that they understand, right?
It's fun, I guess.
It can be. It can also be terrible. So I prefer media and communication, like this kind of stuff. And so the consumer, the designers are starting to get a hold of this stuff now. This is why you're seeing like all of our peers being like Web3, blah, blah, blah. But it takes unlearning all this dumb shit that we learned over the past decade. And then
dumb shit. It got you to where you're at though.
it is dumb now. When you try to use this stuff to solve these problems, you feel like an idiot.
Sure.
I mean,
you gotta unlearn it. It's just how it is.
With the decentralizing, I think the biggest one is gonna be like, give us a new score system, whatever. Like money is now currently being used as a way of how well you do in life, right?
Yep.
So that's the more you have of it, the more successful you are, then, you know, that's how we rate people.
Yeah.
We remove the money.
It's more about how money
Contribution. Fuck, is that what it's going to be replaced with?
So
instead of taking, you are contributing.
Yeah.
That's probably gonna be a scoring system.
Have to move.
Well,
so like you can, it's not how much you retain, which we're doing now.
Yeah.
It's how much you can put it to work in like a good way.
How much you can pass through, how much you can offer out.
Yeah, that's how people are going to be rated. What was that movie? No, that was more of a time, blah, 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 but you would get rewarded by wow, what a nice world that would be.
I mean,
if
will be nice.
Measure of success is like how much are you contributing to others, because then money becomes because as soon as you don't need to own things to, again, everything gonna be out. I don't know if you're gonna be stay alive if this whole weird idea becomes a real thing.
It's really fun.
But then there is no brand, there is no company, there is nothing. It's just like
it changes, it evolves. There's new versions of these things. What's the next one? So where does it go?
No, though.
Some things will die, just like
we wouldn't have variation.
The horses, we have cars. Now horses are things that rich people use.
And cowboys.
Because it's fun.
I don't think we would, it wouldn't be similar to the past. I don't think it's gonna repeat, it's gonna be a completely new thing. I think this will be whatever. Wow.
Right? This is, you get
what
to
a
start
thing to talk about.
This is what we've been talking about. This is
all right.
I mean, we're because there's this change coming, right? Like it's happening. The structures are getting sort of discombobulated. All of the things that we took for granted are getting shuffled. That's great because we get to make cool shit. But it's also extraordinarily confusing and weird. And the only way to do it is with other people.
You know what's the most like okay, one all of our videos I'm like super slow just because I wake up 8 and then now it's like 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just using whatever that is left after working. Yeah. So I'm like super, there's a lag.
It's fine.
But
what time is it? So how does it work?
So it's 1:30 a.m. here.
1:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So 14.
12, 13, yeah.
12 and 14 hours. So if we did, what if we did like our 8 p.m.? It'd be 10 a.m. there. We could try to flip it where we're in the evening. We can't do as late as you, but just to see what I mean, we should do that just to see how we're different.
Yeah.
Where you punch
then
it.
You guys be the zombies and I be the broke one. And then like,
sure, I think we should try that.
This is how this is, and we're like, whoa, okay, let me think about it. Yeah.
I don't even remember what I was going to say before. But it was a good thing. what was it just now?
One more thing, and then it was something related to, I don't know, we were talking about like future and like what will be around, what won't be around. Yeah.
It's so easy to get people that are have the influence or have the money or have the power to move actual things to speed things up onboarded with this. Because
Yeah.
it has this, it's just unavoidable thing, and but
Well,
yeah, it took,
when you have
huh?
resources, you're tracking these kinds of trends because the current instantiation of resources is like you want to protect it and be able to
Yeah.
like stay like, which is not a bad thing because you need to learn how to let go of those resources and
Yeah.
start moving them. But yeah, that makes sense that people that are resourced are looking into this because you figure out like when you do have a lot of resources that there's kind of a dead end because you're like, what do I do? I just keep amassing like more stuff. It doesn't really make sense
No.
at a certain point. Like it's like, well, okay, but there's got to be something else.
For whatever reason, this is the opposite direction of AI.
It's in alignment with AI. You need AI to help you run all this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
AI premised on machine learning, so you have to be able to teach the computers. So there has to be like a relationship of teaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, AI is like I think about this like, so there's all of these intelligences out there, right? Like human intelligences, and you can be peers with them, you can participate with them. Some of those intelligences will be machine intelligences. A lot of them will be very simplistic and they think differently. They think in terms of like logics, right? Calculations. And you should be able to interact with them to do like, look at this gigantic network and based on these components, like what's relevant, because there's no way a human mind or human minds could ever move across that level of information. But computers can do it really quickly. They're good at it, right? But they don't know what questions to ask. Human beings know because they realize the relevance, right? So it's some combination of these things.
Yeah, if everybody would have a very unique ID and all of their contribution, good or bad, to anything, work, people, anything that you relate with, is tracked,
Yeah.
and it's here, then there is no design or engineering. It's just there's just this place where all of this information is, and then
It's
you
about,
would actually talk to this thing.
so design and engineering become filters on that gigantic pile, right? Like you just have a new stratum to work in. So the way I look at this is you've got like sort of core componentry, like what you're talking about, like actually where are you in this? Like you're talking about
2001 Space Odyssey.
yeah, like
Is what it feels like.
so there are like some design fictions around like super intelligent AI that does everything for you. That shit's not coming for a while. It barely works right now. It just fucking barely does anything. But what it does is still useful, right?
But apply it on your simple Lego pieces and watch what happens.
It
Like
still
you
needs
you
to
have
know
a
what to do.
it would be able to understand. It could back engineer. It could. Why? Like, so if you give it very simple pieces of like, I mean, Ruby on Rails is a good example. You have everything in order to build software. Then yeah. Wow. Now I just want to go and see how Ruby on Rails is actually governed.
Like the open source project?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd look into Ethereum because Ruby on Rails is one model, right? Oh, I mean, both are good. Like, so the methods of communication for doing the last generation open source projects are different than what is emerging in crypto.
Yeah.
There are different coordination methodologies. There are different stakes. There are different.
It's the individual versus collective too. A lot
Yeah.
of the older open source, in my understanding, was premised on individuals who would have to maintain these large code bases, and it was really hard because it's one person trying to hold up the whole thing. Is sort of, they're not really like, the research that's been done in open source sort of shows that it's not easy. Like,
No.
yeah, it's not really a scalable thing either. I mean,
it's running most of the internet. It's
but it's
running
not
most of the world.
sustainable though. Like the people,
That part is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people who have been doing this have been dedicating their lives, and it's not
they
really
have to
tenable.
They have to be monks.
Yeah.
Like the way that a lot of the open source contributors work now it's a religious duty to do these things. It's way too much pressure, like in a system, for building pieces of infrastructure that are so vitally important. You need to spread the pressure on that across a larger swath of people. But how does that work? And so like a lot of the some of the experiments that are happening in the crypto thing are like grants and like treasuries that like based on communal voting and stuff like this can move resources towards people doing projects that are vital, right? So that the money that is being made within the ecosystem is being funneled to like infrastructural projects to make the ecosystem stronger, right? And the people who have an incentive to make the thing continue to work, like if you're a whale in Ethereum, like you have a fuckload of your money, like you want these infrastructural projects to move forward because your money is worth more, right? Like at the very greediest base level. And for the rest of the people, they want to play within this territory. So there is an incentive to continue to move resource towards places that can make the whole environment stronger. So like, but there are greed vectors too, where people will try to attack the system that's part of how it gets stronger, is because if the system can't like rejigger around these vectors of attack, then it's a weak system. It's not going to survive. So there's all kinds of crazy shit happening with this.
We've been wasting so much time with Minecraft instead of talking about this. This is so much more interesting.
You have to be able to see this. So we've been spending time like building an awareness of this and how it works. That's all. It takes a while.
Like, there's a lot of growth that you've done in the career that you've had in that like way. And then if you see the value or the sort of what could be in this new ecosystem, there's like a bridge that you have to walk, which is another opportunity for growth. Like there's a thing here. It's more meaningful if you've gone through what you've gone through. Yeah. There's value to that. And you have an understanding for how things work too. So you like the speed with which you pick these things up without having researched it is quick.
Well, you've been doing some research on it, but yeah, like you're able to operate within the logics.
Yeah.
Which is important here. And
you can only do that because of your past work, like how things work. It's not totally new. Like
you end up having to throw away a shitload of stuff though. That's part of the reality of doing this. Like coming to terms with that is a pain in the ass. Yeah. You're like, okay, all that stuff I've been doing is not useful here anymore. Okay, that's fine. As soon as you can get cool with that, like it, there's a way of saying goodbye to that stuff. Like, thank you for like getting me to this place and maybe you'll come back and be useful again. But right now you're not useful as a skill. It's just how that goes. And
there's a meta though.
Yeah. I mean, you can be
a meta of practice, of working, of interacting with people to build things, like all of that you get to take with you. Yeah. The specifics you don't, but that's okay.
No, and I think the further you get along in building things, the more abstracted you get like I've figured out that I'm keeping up with building the technology hands-on, like, is impossible. There's no way. It, like, every 3 years it's going to change. So what is my role in playing with these things? Like, being able to dip my toe in and do little projects, but then, like, you know, offer some larger scale view for people. Yeah.
Imagine the depersonalization, that huge amount. I mean, big part of the population gonna need to go through, because they need to deassociate themselves from all of these things that they build their personalities around. Like, decentralization is probably not, well, at least depersonalization in a way that we've done it so far, which is why it's so difficult to actually understand this, because you actually need to unlearn so much of your thinking, which is attached to your personality, probably. So you need to interesting. This is what not letting go, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah,
understand
if next
yourself.
call we do it in the morning, my morning, gonna be so good to see you guys
Right.
doing what I'm doing currently, which is 10 seconds delay
Well,
between
it's
each
also
thought.
the stuff that we're talking about is extremely beefy. It's like, because the things that you have to unlearn. I mean, I've spent the past year and change doing what you're doing right now. So, like, fuck, that's like that then? Like, and then the whole thing, you have to rejigger a bunch of stuff. There's a time delay. You cannot get this stuff fast, because part of the process is, okay, I'm gonna have to let go of that to understand how this works. And then there is a process of letting go of that. And that can only go as fast as it can go, or else you'll blow your mind out. So, yeah. And then structuring it in slowly, knowing that like a good, solid understanding of this thing is more important than a fast understanding of it.
Wow, currencies, borders,
Yep.
governments. Let's see.
Got stuff for you to read now that will help with this.
This is where
Just
you want to
all
be
white.
playing anyway.
What?
This is where you want to be playing anyway. Like, you've talked about your interest in government and identity and global citizenship, effectively.
This is the tools, and the people who have this understanding are the people you want to be playing with.
My thing was, at least until now, but now that I understand this, or at least my version of it, because I still don't fully understand the whole thing.
No one does.
I don't think anybody does.
was just bringing radical transparency to governments through tech. It wasn't to, like, decentralizing it, or, you know, just, it's not even power to people. It's a whole, but whatever. Yeah, this is the next step after that. Because the lack of communication between these smaller organizations within governments is just crazy. Once you bring transparency there, that big lie is now in the open. Then people are much more open for, you know, solutions like this, or to understand the reason for it, why it needs to exist, and why money is the carrot that we all been.
I mean, there's a historical context here with the printing press.
Psychology need to be rebuilt. Imagine that.
Oh, I got all
that's the core. Like, if psychology needs to, because religion, let's just all of this but pass, and then, like, all right, so psychology needs to be rewritten, because
if you want sources on that, I've been following them. There's meta psychologies, there's people redoing the entire thing.
I like how Dave's eyes have been since the
Well, I got new
the
people.
start of this conversation. It's like, you get me now.
Yeah, we can talk about this shit. Because I've been poking around all of this crap. Like, because all of the things that you're having, you're like, yeah, that changes and this changes and that changes. Like, the way I've landed on this, and I'm curious where you'll land, is religions and the things that religions used to do are how you distribute a lot of this shit. It's how you run these organizations.
Yeah.
Religion is not going away. It's just coming back in a form that makes sense, that we understand. It's not magic anymore. It's science. It's psychology. They're all connected.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna be in bed like owl like.
Yeah, I had lots of
What
that.
else?
I'd smoke weed too, or like take THC and just be like, oh, what the fuck? It's fine.
Yeah, fuck. If any amplifier to this, I can go nuts.
Mm-hmm. We got time. And well, this is why we have a working group like talking about these things. So that like
Yeah, right. You need that.
You have to, because otherwise
Like,
yeah. Start becoming rainbow about it. Not good.
Yeah, you can't do it alone. It's a
It
force
is
function to
impossible.
work together.
It's too big. It is too goddamn big. You'll blow your mind out.
where are people thinking about where are they at currently? Where is that, cool spot for all of these people talking about this? There is a private community. Which one is the largest?
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening. It depends on what you're interested in. Like the majority of this stuff is financial right now, because that's where the biggest opportunities are.
No, I mean like engineers or people that understand the language in which they should actually write this thing. Where are they talking about this now?
DeFi, like the decentralized finance, and then there's like a new social sort of thing emerging now, the DAO stuff.
Yeah.
Decentralized autonomous organizations.
DAO.
Those are, yeah, I mean, they're not newer, but they're newer on the sort of circuit of people like talking about things, and they're more social. And
oh my God, like I would love to just create a very simplified survey of like giving each question, let's just say 10 questions about like very high level things.
Mm-hmm.
And ways that it can go about. So like companies, organizations, governments, blah, blah, and then see how people that are already thinking in these lines, what their response is, because that would align us on cores very quickly. And
Yeah, we have a bunch of resources on this front. It's so in the same way that like it's a decentralized playing field, which means the information is all over the place in networks, right? Like trying to centralize this information. You have like some VCs trying to do this. It's just enormous though. Like
I mean, like not a kind of a, it would just help you understand the type of people that are working in this,
I get
where their mind goes in terms of the future of,
mm-hmm.
if everything goes well, how does that look like? And if you're already aligned on that, there you have your religion.
Yeah, so I have some sources on that front. Like Toby Shorin, this dude, he's like a designer, knowledge worker kind of dude. He's part of a squad called Other Internet. He wrote this piece called Squad Wealth that I think you'll be into. And then he just wrote something because he's been concerned, and Ethereum and the ecosystem around there has been concerned with public goods and creating things in like a manifesting things that are for the public good and what that means. He just, along with his collaborators, just wrote a big piece on that. And it, there are a bunch of different projects that have like identity as like their core goal. And so with this, they write design fictions about what the world could look like, right? And then, yeah, you're starting to get, there's sci-fi authors or whatever who write about this stuff because you have to write fiction so that people can aspire to something, right? I mean, Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're religions. Dogecoin, believe the number goes up, it goes up. So, like, yeah. Then you can look at what a religion is, what a religion does, all these other things. But yeah. So there's a lot. Yeah.
I mean, just asking, I don't know, like 50 people that are doing these kind of things or doing anything on Web3, their opinions on things.
Yeah.
That's a research project.
Yep.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Because then you understand what type of personalities get interested in this, and then they can be evil or they can be whatever. Like, how do they see
Definitely
the future? And then how, yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
like,
what if you're all thinking about the same future?
I mean, that's the reason to publish. That's the reason that we're trying to put this stuff out and talk about we're trying to figure out the best way to communicate what we're thinking now, right? Part of, I mean, that's where Kristen and I are at. Like, how do we get this into a format that we can collect other people who are aligned? When does that happen? In what way? Like, what mediums do we communicate with? I don't know. Yeah.
I think on the next call, I'm still like,
yeah. I mean, it's
a full week of just just walking around.
Be like, put that on the blockchain. That should be a Web3. What happens? This is fun. I didn't know we were going to get this one.
No.
This is good.
Like the outcome of the call, or what do you mean?
I mean, we never know what we're going to get into.
Never know, but this one was like a big unlock. It's good. You've got the pattern of this thing now. You can play with it. So we can start having conversations around that stuff and seeing what you're doing now and how it relates to where it can go, and like maybe different ways to structure that stuff or not, or whatever. So I think that's interesting stuff. That will be extraordinarily useful to other people.
How many more social disasters do we need to see until we're ready for this? I feel like what happens with the whole culture and Instagram is the breaking point. Once that bursts, then I can look into like, all right, let's just shut everything down and then start thinking about turning this into the next step.
I think it's
but until
keep an eye on it now and then start understanding how things are built. I mean, so one of the guys we're working with, Sharuz, he's like an extremely capable engineer, like, and he's worked on his own. He's done all kinds of crazy shit. It has taken him a year to understand like how to build with these patterns, how to get them actuated, how to interact with other people. It's a long-term study like project. Just the way I look at it is, well, right now we get to play around these things, but we haven't built anything yet. we are just on-ramping ourselves right now into the mindset. So it takes as long as it takes.
Fuck. Wait, like I'm thinking Web 4 in that case would be we are living in, whatever.
Don't go to Web 4. We're barely in Web 3.
Farzad is Web 4.
Yeah.
It won't even be called Web then. It'll be called like, I don't know.
I mean, our brains will just be smashed into each other. Where I think your thoughts now. Something like that.
You can do what I want to do next.
Yeah, I can do your work for you.
Exactly.
Oh, you could actually clone yourself.
I mean, you could build a machine. You get clean enough
very
data
easily
that represents your thinking you can have a machine intelligence that can think with you along your thought lines probably, but we got to map all that. And there's a lot of crazy cognitive science that needs to be figured out.
Population need to come down by at least 2/3 for this to
2/3.
yeah yeah we'll kill each other. That's what's gonna happen.
Let's remove 2/3 of the population. He's close himself.
It's all Farzads everywhere. Robot Farzads.
Ah, shit. Okay.
Well, let's pick an evening time for us and a morning time for you, and then we can see where you've landed in a week's worth of knowing this. We'll send you a couple pieces that like higher quality stuff. I also found like I'll send you that stuff and we'll see where you get with that. I mean, that's a jumping off point. And then, yeah, I don't know. Cool.
You know what's interesting about this? Once you give this idea to somebody, I mean, there is an ocean of information now that you need to rescan and then apply. So you don't need, I actually don't need anything to read until I deal with myself.
Sure.
Mentally, where I'm going, yeah. This is a digital version of going hippie, I guess.
Basically. Yeah, the pieces I have in mind will help with that process. Like they're just little scaffoldings, like shorthands to think about, so you don't have to manually do it all. But because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. It's a first for sure.
Cool. Well, we've forked our conversation.
Well,
and that's that now. Well, it'll be fun to talk about our project or the generalized project that we're working on with you being able to pick it apart. So, because like you'll be able to ask, you'll be like, don't do that. What are you doing? Think over here. I've been waiting for this thing to happen, like not with you specifically, but people showing up, and then we can work together. Like,
yeah, and then you can work with us.
Yeah, because there's lots of stuff to do.
I'd be the guy like.
We're all like that. Every call, we're just like, oh fuck.
Someone's usually like, have you done this before? And everyone's like, I haven't done this before. I don't know.
No one's done this before.
Like every time. Okay.
Yeah.
How do we do it? And then we're like, well, let's figure it out.
Yep. And if you were to go find somebody else who might have done something kind of like this before, it wouldn't apply. They'd be like, I don't know, I haven't done this before either.
Yeah.
This is just how it is every time we do everything. It's funny.
It's good though to start that way, because if we had someone that had done all of it before and they're like, you just need to do this, and we'd be like, why? How? What? Yeah. You got to start slow.
You got to do it slow, do it piece by piece by piece. It's fine.
Oof, it's like a change of it changed. Yeah, like after 1 hour of conversation, you go, I need to go change the way I live my entire life now. And then once you've dealt with that, you're like, all right, let's see. Interesting. Fuck it, my brain is all white now. It's just nothing is in there now.
Good. That's where
Now
you
you
should
can
be.
rest.
Now you can sleep.
Yeah, now you can rest.
You don't need anything in there anyway. What's the point?
Yeah, I wonder what my state of mind gonna be when I wake up. I'm still like
Calm.
yeah, right.
Completely zen.
Calm, yeah. I could probably meditate like crazy tomorrow.
Should
Try. Good time for it. You get one of these downloads.
Yeah.
Every time we so the being nomadic helps with this because we change location all the time. And so I can't get stuck
Yeah, right. You
thinking. So I'm just like, all right, on to the next place. And then I get one of these everywhere we go. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to re-fucking think all of that. You just get used to it now. It's like this all the time. I'm like, we go to a new place, we meet some new people. They're thinking about something that's adjacent to this. Then I'm like, all right, add that to the model. And like, sometimes it's like a fundamental change. And I'm like, oh, I've been thinking about that entire structure wrong. So let's like pick it up and rejigger it. You just get used to having everything broken all the time. It's fine.
You know what this is similar to? Like, this is gonna be the last thing I say. I was interested in joining Antler. This VC, global one, YC but remote, and the beast of a that actually they could pull it off. But I was very interested in actually enabling them to build companies remotely 3 years ago when they come to me, 4 years ago. And then they, for whatever reason, that thing didn't stick. I probably didn't pitch it properly for them to understand it. A few years later, they reached out and were like, hey, we built something. And then today I just saw that YC has a tool now, or building a tool where they're, yeah, but it's a beginning. So the future where you are able to find and hire, build companies remotely.
Yep.
But then with this, they wouldn't have a base even, and then. Oh, fuck yeah. Like, companies would actually go back to solving problems instead of just being a thing.
Yep.
We need that in the world right now.
Uh-huh.
We got a lot of
That would
problems.
be the new brands, basically, because you can't make a thing better and then name it something else. It needs to be, you apply whatever your, otherwise, okay, there is a problem that it hasn't been solved yet. All right, then we create a thing for it. And then everybody contributes to that.
Yep. Well, you can come at it from a bunch of
aliens
are
doing currently. I wonder if aliens are on this.
Could be.
Aliens? They're the ones like
The blockchain is an
forcing
alien.
us. Yeah.
All right.
On that note.
On that note.
On that note.
Good night.
Aliens are on Web 4.
But that's what Web 4 solves. It's an alien network.
We'll message you about times for next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Cool.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.